Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into a really interesting idea from a text called "It Requires the Supernatural." The whole argument is that for certain messages to actually land and be believed, human persuasion just doesn't cut it. You need something more. So let's break it down.
So let's just start with the big question that's really at the heart of all this. How do you share a message that just seems, well, kind of impossible? I mean, something that goes against everything we think we know from our daily experience. This one question, right here, is the key to unlocking the whole argument we're about to explore.
All right, first up, we have to get a handle on what the core challenge is. According to the author, the problem isn't about having the perfect speech or some clever presentation. Nope, it's about the message itself being fundamentally incredibly hard to accept on a human level.
And here it is, the main idea, straight from the source. The message being talked about here, the gospel, it's not like sharing a new recipe or a political opinion. The author's whole point hangs on this. It's designed to be tough to believe on its own. It practically demands something extra, something that goes way beyond human logic.
And now, here's a fascinating twist the author throws in. They claim this challenge is actually even bigger today. Think about it like this. Back in biblical times, maybe these ideas had a certain weight to them, a cultural context. But today, in our modern, skeptical world, the scales are tipped way, way against belief. So that need for something extra, it's more critical now than ever before.
So, okay, if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, this brings us right to the main thesis of the whole text, what the author calls the supernatural requirement.
Now, this is a really important distinction the author makes, so lean in for this one. When they say supernatural, they are not talking about flashy, big, outward events, what they call spectacular. The focus here is on something internal. It's about a power, a sufficiency that comes from a divine source. It's a subtle difference, but it's absolutely crucial to the whole point.
And the source uses this quote from 2 Corinthians to back it all up. The idea here is a total shift in where a person gets their ability, their confidence. It's about moving away from relying on your own talents, your own charisma, and instead plugging into a sufficiency that comes directly from God.
And this leads to what the text calls a divine ministry. Now, think of this less like a job you apply for and more like a specific calling. The logic being presented is super simple. If the mission comes from the Spirit, then it can only be done with the Spirit's power. The two are completely linked. You can't have one without the other.
So, you might be asking, is there any proof for this whole idea? Well, the author turns to history for a case study, looking at the experience of the very first disciples.
This quote, right here, is presented as a huge, pivotal moment. I mean, just imagine it. You've been given the most important mission in the history of the world, and the very first thing you're told to do is wait. Just wait. The author argues this proves that the empowerment had to come before the action. They literally could not start until they received this power from on high.
So let's just walk through this sequence. Step 1, they get the mission. Okay, great. Step 2, they get this really weird command to just wait. Step 3, the power finally shows up. And then, and only then, do we get to step 4, they act, and it leads to what the source calls dynamic evangelism. The author is really stressing that this specific order is no accident. It's basically a blueprint.
And according to the source, we're not talking about a small improvement here. This empowerment was a total game changer. All of a sudden, that message that was so humanly difficult to believe was being delivered with this incredible new boldness. And it was backed by what the text describes as signs and wonders that made the unbelievable, well, believable.
Okay, so that's the history lesson, but what about now? How does any of this apply to us today? This final section is all about connecting that ancient principle to our modern world.
This brings us to another key verse from the text, and you've got to notice the direct link here. First you receive power, and then you shall be witnesses. It's laid out like a direct formula. The power is what makes the witnessing possible.
So this all leads to the author's big takeaway for us today, and it's summed up in this really unique term, becoming a proof producer. The idea is that this power isn't just for speaking better, it's for living in such a way that your actual life becomes the proof of the message you're trying to share.
The source has a pretty surprising take on how you get this power. It argues it's not something you have to earn or beg for. Actually, it's presented as a gift that's already been given to believers. So the final step isn't about working harder for it. It's about trusting and learning to follow the guidance that's already there.
And this brings us right back around to that crucial distinction we made at the beginning. The author concludes that this internal guidance is always supernatural, even if it doesn't lead to some big, flashy, spectacular event. The real power, the text argues, is the stuff happening on the inside.
And that really leaves us with one final question that kind of gets to the heart of it all. If the source is right, if this power is already on the table, already offered, what does it actually mean to receive it and live it out? It's a challenging idea, for sure. Thanks for exploring it with me today.